All right, good morning. Happy Monday. Couple of announcements. Uh, okay. If you miss an exam, um, I'm not going to go running all over the country trying to find you or email you. You're going to have to be responsible and set up a meeting with me because we have to discuss what's going on. I'm getting a lot of excuses that, frankly, I just don't believe because there's no post. Well, once I post the exam, it's there. So when I have students saying, "Well, I don't see the exam," it's there, and I can see it. So anyhow, all these shenanigans need to stop because I'm not going to put up with it. And you are responsible for taking the exam when I assign it. Um, let's see. So we're getting in the month of October, and I'm just letting you know that you have until October and November to notify me about any missing exams and for us to discuss what we're going to do about it. I'm not going to be doing any missing exams in December. So the semester is over in December and I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to be messing with 100 people, that are missing 200 exams. So make sure that if you have something missing, I would take care of it right away. In addition to that, the longer you wait, the worse you're going to do on it. So that's just the way it goes. So if you have any unfinished business, make sure you contact me and we set up a meeting to figure out what we're going to do. Guess that's it. All right. The other day, well, I don't even know if I posted the assignment for P7, but we're going to have an exam probably this Friday. So the P7 exam, and there's a lot in it. Anyhow, plan on that on Friday. So what I've been doing lately is I've gone over this whole solving equation. So I've gone over solving a quadratic by factoring, solving a quadratic by square roots, solving a quadratic by completing the square, and solving a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. I did not want to give you this problem last week because I didn't want to blow your mind, but I do want to show you a more complicated solving by completing the square. I know there's a glare. I need to turn this light off. Hold on just a second. All right, so this is a quadratic equation, and the problem is this number right here. So you can't complete the square with that number. So unfortunately, what you have to do is divide everything by 3. So divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3 is 0. So remember that we're trying to complete the square. So we're going to add 4/3 to both sides. And now we take half of -1, which is -1/2, and we square it, which would be a positive. You square everything. A negative to an even power is positive. 1 squared is 1, and 2 squared is 4. So what happens is you add 1/4 to create a perfect square trinomial. So the left side is easy because you just say x minus 1/2 quantity squared. Over here is a different situation because you're adding fractions, you have to get a common denominator. So the common denominator is 12. So you multiply by 4/4, and this guy's. So the right side ends up being 16/12 plus 3/12 is 19/12. Now, just a reminder, first of all, you should be writing down everything that I do, And second of all, I'm modeling what you need to do. So I was looking closely at your scratch paper on the last exam, and a lot of you are just writing a bunch of garbage. This math class will get harder and harder if you continue to do that. You want to be able to write complete steps. You want to show complete work. You want the next statement to equal the first statement, the statement after that to equal the previous statement, the statement after that to equal the previous statement, and you really need to get in a good habit. Otherwise, things are going to get really rough. Your work should not look much different than my work. So I am modeling the way you should do it. This is not my style. This is how you write math. This is how most people are going to write it. All right, so now you're going to take the square root of both sides. And when you take the square root, make sure you bring that all the way down and put plus or minus. So you have two of those, so one comes out. And now you cannot have a fraction under a radical, so you split it up. And when I split this up, I'm going to do a prime factorization on 12, 2 times 2 times 3.
Ms. Birch, when you're done, can you move it down a little bit? Thank you.
So I split up the radicals and I did a prime factorization on 12. So you get plus or minus square root of 19 and a 2 gets to come out, radical 3. Then you have to rationalize the denominator. So this is still x minus a half. So this ends up being plus or minus square root of 19 times 3 is 57. Divided by a 3 gets to come out times 2 is 6. So what happens now is you add 1/2 to both sides. So you get 1/2 plus or minus the square root of 57 over 6. And you have to get a common denominator because once again, you're adding fractions. So you'd have, this guy's missing, that's a 6. So the common denominator is 6. That's the least common denominator. So you have x is equal to 3, 6, plus or minus the square root of 57, 6. So your final answer is 3 plus or minus the square root of 57, all divided by the common denominator. And don't try to cancel the 3 and the 6. So that is a sum and a difference. So you cannot cancel the 3 and the 6. See, if you had a product like 3 square root of 57 over 6. Yes, you can cancel parts of a product, but you cannot cancel parts of a sum or difference. So your two solutions are 3 minus square root of 57 over 6 and 3 plus square root of 57 over 6. Now you do have some problems in your assignment, but I will not put one on an exam. So I'm just letting you know that those this is pretty much everything I've taught you. This is solving by completing the square. Can't have a radical in the denominator. So you split it up. Can't have a fraction under the radical. Can't have a radical in the denominator. And throughout this whole thing, you can't get rid of fractions. You have to deal with the fractions. Any questions? All right. What I'd like to do then is I want to work one more quadratic formula problem, and then we're going to go to the next thing. I'm going to try to finish P7 today. So we've been doing
Ms. Birch, what problem was this called again?
This was solving by completing the. And the reason why this was such a mess is because the leading coefficient was not 1. It was some other number.
Okay, thank you.
So when the leading coefficient is 1, it's like the problems we worked last week with the square. When the leading coefficient is not 1, it's a big mess. Because you can't complete the square with a leading coefficient that's not 1. All right, so let's do another quadratic formula. So I'm on problems 70 on page 106. 75 through 82, and I'm going to do 82. Okay. You cannot do the problem right now because as far as the quadratic formulas goes, you have to, so we're solving by the quadratic formula. Let me write that here.
Ms. Birch, can you scroll up a little bit? I'm sorry about that.
When you solve using the quadratic formula, you have to set it equal to 0, like factoring. And it must be, it has to be in standard form in descending order according to the powers of x. So it is not set equal to 0 now, so we got some work to do. So I would subtract 6x from both sides, get 3x squared minus 6x is equal to -1, then add 1. So 3x squared minus 6x plus 1 is equal to 0. It is in standard form. We're ready to go. So now we can say A equals 3, B equals -6, and C equals 1. So last week we sung the quadratic formula song. X is equal to -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I hope that helped you to memorize that. X is, now watch this. That is a negative of a -6. So that's where people are going to make their first mistake. Plus or minus the square root. This is -6 quantity squared. Minus 4 times 3 times 1. Make sure you run that radical out. Make sure you run that bar all the way across. 2 times 3. So we get a +6 plus or minus the square root of a negative times a negative is a +36, and a negative times those positives is -12, all divided by 6. So x is equal to the square root of 36 minus 12 is 24. And you can't leave those perfect squares in there. So you're going to do a prime factorization on 24. So I'm going to just do this in my head. 24 is 3 times 8 or 4 times 6. So 4 times 6 all divided by 6. This is 6 plus or minus. A 2 comes out. A 6 gets stuck. And see how you can divide all 3 terms by, that's not a 6, by the way. Square root of 6 is like 2 point something. But see how you can divide all the terms by 2? So divide by 2. Divide by 2 is 1. And divide by 2 is 3. And that is your final answer. Let me just check my answer to make sure I got it right in the back of the book. So this is P7. And this is number, what, 82? So it's 3. I should have put it in a solution set. This is right, but they have it in a solution set. So let me do that. So this would be 3 minus radical 6 over 3 and 3 plus radical 6 over 3. So that's how it should be, and that's how it's written in the book. Now, remember what I said about the quadratic formula being like 9 steps? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 steps. So that's why we don't like you. It's not hard, but we don't want to use this all the time. Okay, the other thing, you guys, is I can tell who's practicing on the online. So the people who are getting 80s and 100s on this test, on these exams, They know how to write the answers. You can tell that they practice the online problems. Those of you who aren't practicing, I know who you are. And I absolutely know you're not practicing the online problems. So get with it. All right? I'm expecting you to perform on these exams, and I'm not going to just allow you to retake tests. I'm not going to allow that. It's too much work for me, number one. Number two, you need to be prepared for the first exam, because those of you who are going to college, they're not going to let you take retakes. You have to get the score on the first test. So all of this stuff is going to stop. So I've been patient. We've been in school since August 5th. August, September, and we're getting into October. Okay, let's straighten up. Okay, because I am trying to prepare you for college. So you have to be ready for the exam. This weekend, I got 25 emails about all kinds of different things. And it's not fair to me. It's not right. You need to be ready for the first exam, and you need to practice the online problem, because I'm telling you it's on the exam. I'm telling you to practice the online problems so you know what you're doing. And some of you just flat aren't doing it. And I hope it doesn't get to the point where I just have to straight out give you a 0 to get my point across, because I will. I'm not going to mess around with this. You are expected to take the exam that I assign, and you are expected to take it on the day that I assign it. And if you don't take it, you're going to be getting 0s, and some of you are going to be upset. But I mean what I say, and you guys should know me well enough by now that I do mean what I say. When I say yes, it means yes. When I say no, it means no. And when I tell you that I'm not going to let you see, because here's the deal. When you take an exam later, that's preferential treatment over my other students, because all 150 students want to take an exam later, and I'm not going to give you preferential treatment over everyone else. It's not fair, it's not right, and I'm not going to do it. So I hope I'm getting my point across. And those of you know who I'm talking to, stop playing. I'm not going to put up with it. Okay, now, so guess what we've done? We've gone through solving quadratics using factoring, square roots, completing the square and the quadratic formula. So now in the next section, 91, they let you choose the method. So I'll read the directions. It says, solve each quadratic equation by the method of your choice. So remember in materials, I put the quadratic solving methods, and I told you the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, well, let me just tell you. You want to use factoring or square roots. If you can't use those, then you want to either complete the square or use the quadratic formula. All right, so let's see if you can guess what method you should use. All right. So on 92, you have 3x squared minus 4x equals 4. What method do you want to try to use to solve this? Remember, the quadratic formula works for everything, but I don't want to use the quadratic formula in all these problems. So does this look like something that's easily factored? Not really. This looks like factoring method 6. We can't use square roots because, and the thing is, we don't want to mess around factoring. If it's not easy to factor, we don't waste time trying to factor and it doesn't work. Remember, with square roots, you can't use square roots with an x. So we're forced to use completing the square of the quadratic formula, and that has a coefficient of 3. We're going to use the quadratic formula. So unfortunately, x squared minus 4x, set it equal to 0, subtract 4 from both sides. So your a is 3, your b is -4, and your c is -4. I'm not going to do it, I'm just setting it up. All right, number, let's say 96. Just trying to get you to see what solving method you're going to use. Now, the two that you want to use, like I said, is factoring and square roots. So you see this problem? Can't you simplify? So can't you divide by 2 right away? So x squared equals 2 times what is 2, 1, 2 times what is 5, 2 with 1 remaining, 2 times what is 10. What method do you want to use? Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, so we just solved for x, right?
No, we haven't solved for x. We solved for x squared. We haven't solved for x.
Oh.
We want to solve for x. We want to solve for x by either using factoring, square roots, completing the square of the quadratic formula. And I'm asking you, which one do you want to use?
You square the 125.
I know. Yep, you take the square root of both sides. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that.
Yep, good job. So x is equal to plus or minus, and I'm going to do a prime factorization on 125. So I'm going to take out a 5 times what is 12, 2, with what 2 remaining? That's a perfect 5 times 5 times 5. Remember, you have to simplify all radicals. They're not going to tell you, but you have to simplify all radicals. This is plus or minus 5 radical 5. So your two solutions are -5 radical 5 and +5 radical 5. And that was the most efficient method in solving this. So this was the most efficient method. Would you like me to do another one? Let's do 106. 3x squared minus 27 equals 0. Well, I'm not going to think about the method yet because I want to simplify this. So I can divide everything by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. What method do you want to use to solve this? Remember, solve means find the x values. So what method? Come on, you should know right away.
Quadratic.
Nope.
Difference of squares?
Yep, factoring, difference of squares. So this is 2 steps. X plus 3 times x minus 3 equals 0. Your solutions are -3 and 3. Done. And if you did the quadratic formula, you'd still be working it for the next half hour. So by the way, a lot of you on the exam, I don't know what you're doing, but we're using the zero product property. And don't make this harder than what it is. Some of you are making this extremely hard. The first thing you see is x plus 3. What does x have to be to make that a 0? -3, right? Look at the next one, x minus 3. What does x have to be to make that 0? +3. So I don't care what people have told you in the past. I can care less what people have told you in the past. Just do what I say. One thing I can't stand is when people learn tricks and they don't know what they're doing. So you're using the zero product property. What makes that 0? -3. What makes that 0? 3. Don't screw it up because this whole class is going to be solving. It's the easiest thing we're going to do. So don't mess it up. Okay, let's see. One more thing to teach you and I'll be done. Okay, do you guys understand what you're doing when they say to choose a method? I'll say it again. You want to be able to solve by factoring, one of the 7 factoring methods, or solve by square root. But you have to know the steps. So when you solve by factoring, remember, you have to set it equal to 0, put it in descending order, and use one of the 7 factoring methods. Then you use the 0 product property after you factor. We could have also solved this using square roots. Remember, you isolate the square, take the square root of both sides and put plus or minus. But since this was already set up for factoring, that's why we use factoring, because we save yourself 1 or 2 steps. Okay, so now we're going into solving radical equations. And I'm taking problems out of the book again. I'm going to do problem 116, which matches to 115. So 116 is the square root of 20 minus 8x equals x. Okay, here are the steps. When you are solving radical equations, isolate the radical, just like isolating the square. You want to isolate the radical. And then what you're going to do is square. Now, did I say square root? I said square both. So the radical is isolated. And now what you're going to do is you're going to square both sides. Now, here's the deal. Whenever you square both sides, you could create bogus solutions. So unfortunately, whenever you do what I did in the green, you have to check your solutions. So squaring causes, those are bogus solutions. You must check answers.
Wait, what is that? What does it say again, Ms. Birch? Squaring what?
It says squaring causes extraneous, extraneous, which are bogus solutions. You must check your answers. So
Okay, thank you.
Check this out.
Okay.
The reason why you square both sides is because you create 2 of them to get rid of the radical. But look what happens. It creates a quadratic. So what we want to do is what? Darn it. All right, check this out. I'm going to subtract 20 and add 8x to both sides. I'm going to set it equal to 0. I get x squared plus 8x minus 20. And listen, we pray we can factor.
Wait, Ms. Burke,
Yeah.
how come you didn't move the x squared?
Because you know what? Moving the x squared would have made it negative. I could have. But whenever I have a positive quadratic, I just move the other ones. But you could. If you move if you take a negative x squared to both sides, make sure that you get rid of the negative. Because you're gonna have a negative x squared. You don't want that. Thank you for asking that. So anyhow, what I was saying was we pray we can factor. See, we have to solve a look at. Here's what sucks. Every time we have a quadratic equation, we have to use one of the quadratic solving methods. See, in Algebra 1, when we had linear equations, you just solve for x, solve for x, solve for x. Every time you get a quadratic, you either have to solve by factoring, square roots, completing the square, or the quadratic formula, so it sucks. That's why when I square both sides and saw that quadratic, I'm like, darn it, we're going to have to use one of the solving methods. So pray this is factoring method 5. Keep your fingers crossed. Is there anything that multiplies to give negative 20 and adds to give 8? One times 20, two times 10. where the 10 is positive and the 2, thank goodness. So that multiplies to give negative 20. So thank goodness, because guess what? If that didn't work, you have to use the quadratic formula. That's 9 steps. All right, unmute yourself. Everybody unmute yourself and tell me what makes that 0?
2.
2 and then negative 10.
Yeah, negative 10.
Yep, good job. So that's how you solve a radical equation. Almost done. And then we're going to work the rest of the time in the teams. And listen to me. You need to get all your issues resolved in your teams because you have to be able to do this assignment on your own. And there's only like, how many parts? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parts. So you can expect the test to have approximately 2 problems from each part. Okay, uno más. Let's do 117. All right, 117 is the square root of x plus 3. Equals x minus 3. So the steps are isolate the radical. We did. Oh, you know what? Remember what I said? We have to check these. We're not done. Because we could have extraneous solutions because I squared everything. So watch. So I have to check these. So the first thing. So the first thing I want to check is x equals 2. So here's how you do it. You take the original problem without the green. And you say the square root of 20 minus 8 and put a 2 in. Does that equal 2? Now you are not solving an equation. This is a proof. And when you do a proof, you keep the left side on the left side and the right side on the right side and see if you get a true statement. So this is 20 minus 16. Does that equal 2? Does square root of 4 equal 2? Now you don't put plus or minus. That radical was already there. So the square root of 4 is just 2 equals 2. There's your proof and it works. So now we're going to check negative 10. So we have the square root of 20 minus 8 times 10. Does that equal negative 10? Does 20 minus 80 equal negative 10? Well, 20 minus 80 is negative, what is that, 60? Can't have a negative under the radical. So guess what? Extraneous. So this did not work, so you have to scratch him out. Can't have a negative under a radical for it to be real. So once you get a negative under a radical, you can just stop and say, that's imaginary. That's imaginary and that's real. Can't have that. So there was only one solution. And this does make sense. So think about it. Square roots go to the right. So regardless of where this square root is, he can only cross once. So one of them is going to be extraneous. So that's one thing that's bad about the radical equations is you have to check them. And if you don't, you could write down the wrong answers because there could be, both of them could fail too. Both could fail. So if the square root does not cross the x-axis, then both would be extraneous.
Wait, Ms. Birch. You put in positive 10 and it's supposed to be negative 10.
What's that?
When you plugged in 10 to check, you put in positive 10. instead of
Oh,
negative 10.
okay, so let's see I messed it up. So let's put it, thank you. So that would be what, a positive 80? I got water on there now. So that, okay, so that would be 100. I got water on it. Thank you. Let's do this right. Darn it. Okay, so this would be that would be 20 plus 80. Does that equal negative? Does the square root of 100 equal negative 10? Does 10 equal negative 10? No. So it still fails, but that time we did the problem correctly. So thanks for telling me. Because that should be a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, thank you. Let's do another one. Let's do the one I was going to do, 117. Okay. So you have the square root of x plus 3 is equal to x minus 3. All right, so it's isolated, so square both sides, and that means we have to check for extraneous solutions. Darn it. So the left side's nice, because square root of x plus 3 times square root of x plus 3 is just x plus 3, but this is 2 of those. Unfortunately, because you can't deliver a power across the sum or difference. So you can deliver a power across a product. This would be 9x squared, but you cannot deliver a power across a sum or difference, positive or negative. So look at this. FOIL, darn it, it's a quadratic. So outer and inner would be negative 6x plus 9. It's a quadratic. You're going to have to use one of the quadratic solving methods. So subtract x would be negative 7x, and subtract 3 would be 6. And let's just pray we can solve by factoring. So can we solve by factoring? Does anything multiply to give 6 and add to give negative 7?
Negative 1 times negative 6, right? I mean, negative 1 plus negative 6.
No. Yeah. Plus negative 6 or x minus 6, right? So. Right? Negative times a negative is a positive, and negative. Okay. So what are your solutions?
One.
1 and 6.
Okay, now, darn it, I circled it again. Don't circle it. Because we have to check these. Unfortunately. So maybe that's why they save these for last, because they're a pain. So we have to check 1 into the original without the green. So they want to know, is the square root of 1 plus 3, so you put a 1 in for x, equal to 1 minus 3? Is the square root of 4 equal to negative 2? Is 2 equal to negative 2? No. That's extraneous. Now remember, when you put square root, you have to put plus or minus. But when they put square root, you only want the principal root. Don't put plus or minus when they put the root, square root. If you need me to repeat that, let me know. This is x equals 6. So we have the square root of 6 plus 3. Does that equal 6 minus 3? Does the square root of 9 equal 3? Does 3 equal 3? Yes, it does. So there's only one answer, 6. Now, like I said, they could have both failed too. So one could work or they could both fail. All right, so I have not due date for this assignment, but like I said, Friday is October 2nd, and we've spent a lot of time on this already, me getting through it. So I plan on finishing P7 today, and P7 is going to be due like soon, like probably Wednesday. Unless you talk me into it. I mean, I could make it Thursday night, but I mean, I don't want you, see, I'm scared to make it due Thursday because you wait till the last minute, you're not going to be ready for the exam.
You just don't want us to procrastinate, right?
Right, exactly. I don't want you to, so mainly when I teach, I want you to be doing what I'm teaching. I don't want you to wait 3 days to do what I'm teaching. I don't want you to get behind. So in other words, just because I make an assignment due at 11:59 p.m., I'm not saying wait to do it. I'm just giving you that extra time in case you run into trouble. You should be turning it in way before that. So I'm done with this now. So you need to get done with it so you can do the practice for the exam. So I'm going to make it due Wednesday night. Okay, but here's today. You have the entire period now to work in the teams, and whether you're working on problem. See, you can't work separately. So get some scratch paper and, say, hey, Edwin, how do you do number 93? Hey, Georgina, how do you do number 24? You want to find out something that you don't understand in this section. Make sure you find out from your team members, but you're working problems together. So you may work problem number 95 on your scratch paper together. Then the next person, pick a problem. You might work 25 on the next problem. So the whole idea of this, and I think I proved this to you the other day, finally, I hope, that working together out loud is going to help you do problems quickly and more efficiently, meaning you're doing it right the first time together. All right. The main goal today is if you have questions about any of those sections, try to get them resolved in your team. All right. All right. I will be taking attendance and going throughout the period, but you have a lot of time until 10:45 to get your questions answered and to ask me questions. Okay. So you are doing, this is P7. It starts on page 105 and it goes to page 107, 1 through 23 odd. All right, I'll see you in the teams. Class is over at 10:45. Okay, I'll see you in the teams, guys. Let me know if you need help.